Timothy's story didn't begin in comfort, and it certainly didn't begin in London. It began in Erua, a quiet village in Nigeria. He was just 6 when his father died, a man loved by many, known for the best palm wine in their village. His death was sudden and cruel. He fell from a palm tree while trying to do his normal business. After the dust of the funeral settled and the sympathizers returned to their lives, reality came knocking. There was no inheritance, no savings, just a struggling woman, her child, and a hungry world. With nothing but her dignity, his mother, popularly known as Mama Timu, turned to survival. She began selling firewood and frying garri to sell every Eke market day. Her hands, once soft, became cracked. Her back, once straight, began to bend, but she didn't mind. She remained focused on one goal, which was to see her son finish secondary school. Timothy, too, understood hardship early. He never asked for biscuits or toys like other children. At school, he wore the same sandals for years, even when the soul had separated like Moses parted the Red Sea. But he never complained. Instead, he studied hard, topping his class quietly. When school fees became a struggle, Mama Timu decided to try her late husband's younger brother, Uncle Ebube, who was living in the next town. He was a big man, driving a Toyota Highlander and known for giving church donations that made people clap during Thanksgiving. She traveled with her son, leaving her pride behind. And as they got there, the man answered their greetings with his nose, but Mama Timu didn't care. After all, she had left her pride at home. "My son is doing well in school," she said, sitting on the edge of his leather chair. "Please help us with just his school fees. I will pay you back small. Ebube took a deep breath, stirred his imported tea and said with a soft chuckle, We all know that things are not easy. I just paid for my daughter's ballet dance lessons. Everything is tight now. Everyone knows the situation of this country right now and it's affecting everybody." There was no argument at all. Mama Timu stood up, thanked him, held his son's hands, and left. Timothy never forgot the look on his mother's face that day. She went back home but was severely pained on the wasted tea fare. In her words, "This would have fed us for 2 weeks or more. Mane, Yadeba." She did all she could to make sure her son finished secondary school. People would see her and ask, "Mama Timu, are you sure you are fine?" Because she became the full definition of the word stress. After secondary school, Timothy stood quietly in his room and made a vow. "I don't know how, and I sincerely don't know when, but I will give my mother a better life. That woman will rest, even if I have to clean toilets in America or London, as long as she remains alive for me." The idea of traveling abroad didn't come from social media or envy. It came from pain, from watching his mother cough at night because of too much smoke from firewood, from hearing even the poor people in the village call them poor. He started researching how people japa. He would walk to the Holy Cyber Cafe, pay 200 naira and spend hours reading visa articles, scholarship programs, and watching YouTube videos. One night, he mentioned it to his mother. "I want to try and go abroad." She didn't laugh or ask how. She just looked at him and said, "If you go, don't forget where you are coming from, please." This strengthened his vision. He worked on people's farms, gathered money, and with boldness and hope, he returned to Uncle Ebube, who was now even richer and with a security man who referred to Timothy as the boy. "Uncle," he said, "I want to travel. I feel my destiny will open there. I am not asking you to sponsor everything, but just help me start." Ebube looked up from his phone and smiled like someone watching a comedy. "Timothy, do you think London is for everybody? You think they are looking for village boys over there? I learned you just finished your secondary school. Your mother really tried. Go and find something local here. Maybe apprenticeship. Because this abroad talk is not realistic at all. Even my own children are still here. Timothy nodded. Thank you, sir, and walked away quietly. That night he cried. Not because of the rejection, but because for the first time he realized the people closest to you may not always see your dream. He became more determined than ever. He started helping at construction sites, carrying cement for small pay. He also worked at the local markets, loading tomatoes into trucks. Every naira went into a small metal box he hid under his bed. His friends mocked him because he worked more than a family man. They stopped cooking with fish or meat. Instead, they cooked with beske, that snack made from soya beans. The situation of things made him to stop speaking much and his jokes disappeared. One day, his mother watched in silence as he kept on whispering to himself. What are you always thinking about? She asked. He looked at her and smiled weakly. Oh, Mama, it's nothing. But trust African mothers, she wasn't convinced. So Timothy said, I am just thinking about how to change your life, Mama. That's all. But the truth, he was tired. He was tired of rejection and tired of empty promises and tired of dreaming with no connection. Soon, he stopped eating well, not because there was no food, but because his mind was too full. He became visibly slim that neighbors started asking his mother if he was sick. Determined to find a way, Timothy took the job at a poultry farm. Every morning by 5 a.m., he would be there cleaning bed droppings, feeding chickens that were fatter than him, and he only got paid 1,500 naira per week. Once he is done with the job, which doesn't exceed 2 hours, he will move to the markets, offload pepper, yams and beans for traders. Some days he will carry 50 kg sack on his back for hours. He developed cough, back pain and cracked heels, but he saved every naira. After hustling for a long period of time, he returned to his uncle, not to beg, but to inform him that he has saved more than 50% of the money. Ebube was in the living room when he arrived. Uncle, Timothy said calmly, I have saved some money. I just need help to connect to someone abroad. I can do anything, even clean gutters. I just need a chance. The man looked at him, squinted and burst out laughing. You? You still want to go to this your abroad? Look at the way you are looking now, like a skeleton of a skeleton. You better go and start eating and forget all this rubbish. Do you know how many of your mates are conductors in Lagos or bricklayers in Port Harcourt? Are they not alive? Must you travel, eh? With the way you are looking, I can tell you for free that you will faint while standing on the airport queue, and then the whole world will call me evil because it's those kind of news that goes viral with the speed of light. Okay, this your London dream is just laziness. Stay in Nigeria and contribute to your nation's economy, and don't disturb me again with this nonsense dream. After all, I am not your father. Timothy stood there quietly with his head bowed, trying not to cry. Not because of the words, but because this was the same uncle who once said he would do anything for his late brother's child during the funeral, and people clapped, hailing him. He returned home, kept fasting and kept on believing. He would go to nearby churches just to hear that prophecy of God will make a way where there seems to be no way. One day, an old friend from secondary school, Joseph, called him. I saw your message about Japa. My cousin is married to a woman in the UK. She's looking for a caregiver for her grandmother. It's not permanent, but it's a start. Are you interested? Timothy answered yes with everything in him, but there was a catch. He needed to get a passport and pay for his visa interview. He ran home, opened his savings. It wasn't enough. He did the unthinkable. He went back to his uncle. This time, he was clutching a nylon bag containing his documents, a passport application form, and a small notebook filled with scribbled visa information. He didn't rehearse his speech because his purpose was still breathing. His uncle stepped out in his robe, yawning and annoyed. "You again?" Uncle Timothy began. "I have found someone in the UK. They need a caregiver. But I need help with my passport and visa interview. I have more than 70% of the money that I need. Uncle, please, just this once." Uncle Ebube laughed. "Timothy, this your stubbornness is spiritual. I said go and do apprenticeship or conductor work like your mates. Use your head. Your mates are here doing Okada, selling Richard cards, learning wedding. You are here chasing white man's land like it's heaven. You should be thinking of how to marry and build a small house in the village. Stay here and contribute to your nation, Chikina." Timothy almost lost it, but he swallowed the lump in his throat and said, "Uncle, even if the amount is too much for you to spare, I will write an agreement. I will pay you back. I just need help." Uncle Ebube stood up, dusted his hands like someone closing a file. "I can only dash you small money for food. You need to eat because you are already looking like a fasting prophet." Timothy smiled sadly. "Thank you, Uncle," he said and walked away. He never looked back. He definitely lost the caregiver job, but he didn't lose the dream of traveling abroad. He added coaching school kids for WAEC to his numerous hustles. One evening, after several months of looking for a buyer, his mother sold the only piece of land, the one her late husband left behind. "Use it to finish your process," she told him. "Don't look back. Fly, my son." Timothy fell to his knees and cried like a baby. It wasn't the money, it was the sacrifice. That land was like her pension, her security, and her last card. 6 weeks later, his passport was ready. His visa interview date was fixed. He entered Lagos for the first time, stayed in a church member's one-room apartment and practiced answering questions like, "Why do you want to go to the UK?" 100 times. He went in for the interview shaking like a generator with bad fuel. When the visa was approved, he sat at the bus park and cried for 1 hour. I kid you not. Not because he was happy, but because it still didn't feel real. The day he entered the airport, Timothy wore the jacket he bought from Benda Select with a scarf his mother tied on his neck. He didn't understand anything at all in the airport. He followed people, asked questions in whispers, laughed nervously when the scanner beeped, and when the plane took off, he pinched himself just to be sure he wasn't dreaming. His arrival in London was nothing like he imagined. The awe of the city was overshadowed by the cold air that seemed to bite straight through his skin. The moment he stepped out of the airport, he felt like a fish thrown into freezing water. He was shocked, confused, and completely unprepared for what awaited him. He pinched himself again, just to be sure he wasn't dreaming. He waved at Oyibo people, just to be sure it was Timothy in London. The first few days were a blur of jarring contrast. He had expected to be surrounded by a bustling city with people rushing around in suits, but he was struck with the absence of the noise he was used to. No market vendors yelling prices, no taxi honks, no commotion, just silent streets and a steady hum of activity that felt foreign. He walked through the city with wide eyes, unsure of where to start. Nothing was familiar. Not the architecture, the food, the way people walked, or even the way they spoke. Every time he had to ask a question, he felt embarrassed as though his accent would betray his outsider status. He had secured a modest job cleaning at a local African grocery store. The work was physical, but it gave him the chance to meet other Africans who had also made the difficult decision to leave their home countries in search of better opportunities. But the real struggle wasn't the physical labor. It was the emotional weight that came with realizing just how far he had fallen from the dream he had once had. London was not the land of gold he had imagined. He wasn't living the life like he had hoped. He was barely surviving. One day, after a tiring shift, he found himself sitting at the back of the shop during his break. His body ached. His thoughts were clouded with doubt. The money he was earning barely covered his expenses, let alone the debt he owed his mother for selling her land to help him get there. I have to make this work, he whispered to himself. I can't go back. I am here now, and London must obey. He knew he couldn't afford to fail. He had to prove to everyone, including himself, that he wasn't just another dreamer who failed. And just when his optimism was beginning to fade, an unexpected door opened. One of the store's regular customers, a successful African businesswoman named Nina, noticed his work ethic. She had watched him day after day cleaning the shop, restocking shelves, and helping customers without ever complaining or seeking recognition. One evening, she pulled him aside. I have been watching you, young man, she said, her voice steady and kind. I am looking for someone to help manage my small office here. It's a part-time role, but it pays better than what you are doing now. Timothy's heart skipped. Are you sure? Because I don't have any office experience, he replied. Nina smiled with her gaze sharp. I can see the hunger in your eyes, and that's what matters to me. I need someone who is willing to learn and someone who doesn't give up easily. If you want the job, then it's yours. That small act of believing in him was the turning point. Timothy took the job. It wasn't easy. He had to learn office procedures, deal with clients, and figure out how to manage his time. But Nina's belief in him gave him confidence. She didn't just give him a job, she gave him the opportunity to rise. For the first time in his life, he started to feel like he was truly part of something bigger than himself. But there was more. Every day after work, he would rush home to his mother's apartment and send money back to his mother in Nigeria. The feeling of sending his first £50 was overwhelming. He knew it wasn't much, but for the first time since he left home, he felt like he was contributing, like he was starting to build the future he had dreamt of. After a few months of working at Nina's office, Timothy began to settle into life in London. He no longer felt like a complete outsider. He had a rhythm, a routine, and most importantly, he had a purpose. But deep down, he knew there was something missing. One evening, as he sat on the bus heading home, he overheard a conversation between two university students about their studies. One of them mentioned how they were preparing for an upcoming lecture on business law. Timothy sat up straight, feeling a pang in his chest. He hadn't thought about school for so long. The dream of getting an education had almost faded since he left Nigeria, but hearing those students talk reignited something inside him. He realized that education was the one thing that could transform his future. The thought of going to university in the UK seemed far-fetched, almost impossible. But the more he talked about it, the more he knew he had to try. He couldn't keep being stuck in survival mode forever. He knew there was no way he could apply for a student visa unless he got into a school first. And even then, the approval process would be complicated. His first few attempts to find a school felt like hitting a wall. Most universities told him the same thing. You cannot study without the proper visa. I am willing to pay. I can make it work, he had pleaded with an admissions officer at one university. I understand, but without the right visa, you can't enroll. It's the law, You see, you will need to leave the country, apply from Nigeria and come back, she explained, her voice sympathetic but firm. Timothy left the university feeling defeated. He had no way of getting back to Nigeria, and even if he did, there was no guarantee he would be able to get the visa he needed. He didn't give up. He researched. Late at night, he sat on his bed with his laptop open, reading about immigration laws, university requirements, and the stories of people who had been in situations similar to his. One evening, after a long shift at work, he met an older man named Tunde who had been in London for several years. Tunde was one of the regulars at Nena's store. He was a quiet man, but he seemed to understand the struggle Timothy was going through. Timothy shared his concerns with him over a cup of tea in the back room of the store. I am stuck today. I want to go to school. I don't just want to work here forever, but my visa. Tunde listened carefully, then leaned in closer and said, You don't need to go back to Nigeria. There's a way around these things. You need to talk to an immigration advisor, someone who specializes in visas. There are routes for people like you, but you have to be patient and smart about it. Timothy's heart skipped. Immigration advisor? How do I find one? Tunde smiled, pulling out a business card from his wallet. I know someone. I will give you their number. They might be able to help. A few days later, Timothy walked into the advisor's office with a mix of hope and anxiety. The advisor, a woman named Sophia, was efficient and serious. She reviewed Timothy's situation and then she said, You are in luck, my friend. You may not be able to apply for a student visa yet, but there's a route we can take. You can apply for what's called a Tier 4 General Student Visa, but you need to secure a place at a university first. It's going to take some time, but it's possible. Timothy's heart raised. And if I do this, will I be able to stay in the country legally while studying? Yes, but it won't be easy. We will need to show proof that you can financially support yourself and that you are committed to your studies. You will also need to provide evidence of your qualifications from your back home. Timothy sat up straighter. I will do whatever it takes. The process of applying for a student visa wasn't quick, nor was it simple. Timothy had to gather documents, his high school certificates, proof of his finances, a letter from his current employer, and a statement explaining why he wanted to study in the UK. In between working long hours at the store and trying to keep his head above water, he spent countless hours filling out forms and waiting for responses. There were moments when he thought the whole thing was too much and that it was impossible, but he kept on going. 2 months later, he received an offer. The letter arrived on a cold grey morning. The first time he had ever received something with the word offer stamped on the top. It was from a university in London that had accepted him into a part-time business management program. When he read the letter, his hands trembled. The weight of what this meant hit him all at once. This was his ticket out of poverty. He immediately called his mother on WhatsApp. Mama, I got in. They accepted me. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Her voice cracked as she responded. Congratulations, dear son. Keep on moving and keep on flying. Now, Timothy's life in London has settled into a challenging reading. Every day, he faced the same battle. How to survive, how to study, and how to send something at least back home to help his mother. The exhaustion weighed heavily on him. His body was beginning to feel like a machine, constantly moving without enough rest. Sleeplessness became his norm. He couldn't afford to stop working, but he also knew he had to stay focused on his studies if he was going to move forward with his dreams. When he wasn't working, he was in class or studying. He had to push through, even when the material was difficult and the language barrier sometimes made it worse. But he was determined. Every time he felt like quitting, his mother's voice echoed in his mind. You will make it. Timothy, don't give up. Keep on moving and keep on flying. His mother was his rock. Every time they spoke on the phone, her words were full of love, encouragement, and a quiet strength. She prayed for him constantly. She knew the path her son had chosen wasn't easy, but she believed he would succeed because of his resilience. She told him, every challenge you face is a step closer to your dreams. Don't be afraid because God is with you and I am praying for you every day. Remember, my son, she would say, don't let pride stop you from asking for help when you need it. Sometimes you have to accept that you can't do anything alone. Even though she couldn't physically be there, she found ways to keep him grounded. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Timothy's routine remained crueling, but with each passing day, he became more accustomed to it. He had learned how to balance work and school, how to manage his time, and how to keep his mind focused. But the mental and physical toll was still undeniable. There was a day when everything seemed to catch up with him. He had worked a long shift, barely slept the night before, and had just finished a particularly difficult class. His head pounded with fatigue and his body ached from the constant physical strain. He hadn't had a day off in weeks, and the thought of continuing this way for much longer seemed impossible. That night, as he was about to sit down for a quick dinner, he received a message from his mother. His heart sank because every time his phone buzzed with a message from her, he couldn't help but feel both a sense of comfort and a heavy burden. He read the message. I hope you are doing well, my son. Don't forget to pray before you sleep. My God is with you. I found a way of sending you foodstuffs because I believe you'll be needing it now. Timothy felt different. He could feel the weight of her concern even through the words on the screen. He didn't know when he started crying. Here he was, struggling to hold it together while his mother back home was sacrificing so much to make sure he had what he needed. She wasn't rich, but she still found ways to send him little things to keep him going. The foodstuff was just a reminder of how much she loved him. A few years later, he had successfully completed the course with a high grade. His part-time job wasn't enough anymore. It was time to move forward and to find a job that now matched his studies. He began applying, but it was tough. Many employers required more experience or a better qualification, but he persisted. And finally, after several weeks of searching, he got something far better. When he called his mother to share the news, the excitement in her voice was like a balanced diet to him. My son, she exclaimed, God's grace had been with you. Just keep going. Timo, you are closer to your dreams than you can ever imagine. The Lord that had brought you this far had not done so to abandon you. There is still more. Once again, congratulations. As Timothy began his new role, he could feel himself growing more confident. His work was still exhausting, but it was meaningful. And slowly, his financial situation began to improve. For the first time since arriving in London, he felt like he was on the verge of something better and something real. Though the hardship wasn't over, but he could see the lights at the end of the tunnel. As the months went by, his life began to change in ways he hadn't imagined. With his new job, he started saving more money. He was no longer just scrapping by. He was moving forward, finally beginning to see the fruits of his labor. He felt an overwhelming sense of pride, knowing that his mother, who had sacrificed so much to get him to this point, was now enjoying some of the benefits of his hard work. In the midst of all these changes, one moment stood out. Timothy had just received a raise at work and was feeling particularly good about himself when he decided to call his uncle. Good evening, sir. He greeted him with a sarcastic sweetness. Oh, my boy, his uncle replied with his voice loud and filled with his usual boastful tone. Congratulations! I see you are doing so well for yourself. I went home last week and all I can say is, wow! Timothy chuckled. He had waited for this moment. Yes, uncle, I am doing very well. I wanted to thank you for all the wisdom you shared with me before I left for London. I remembered you said that my mates who didn't go to school were conductors and bricklayers and they didn't die. Thank you, sir, for pushing me into my destiny. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Timothy could almost hear his uncle scrabbling for a response. Well, you know life is all about luck. You have done well, my boy, his uncle stammered. I always knew you would be great. Timothy let out a wicked laugh. Thank you, uncle. Thank you, sir, for always knowing. His uncle ended the call immediately, feeling ashamed. He reflected on the conversation he had with Timothy years ago and how he had dismissed him. He had made snide comments telling him that his mates were better off being bricklayers or conductors and that Timothy should contribute to his country instead of running away. Now, the young man is doing so well without his one kobo contribution. That day, he truly understood the meaning of Madu Abonechukwu, meaning man no be God. He didn't feel proud of himself anymore. Instead, there was a deep sense of shame. He realized that denying his nephew's request for help also means denying himself of peace. Months later, Timothy met Emilia, a kind-hearted and intelligent British woman with a passion for nursing. She was everything Timothy hadn't realized he was missing. At first, they were just high friends in the same church until she caught Timothy's attention with her warm smile and natural ease. One evening, she invited Timothy for a coffee date. They talked about their backgrounds and so many other things. Her humor, intelligence, and genuine care for the elderly patients made Timothy admire her even more. As weeks passed, Timothy found himself thinking about her more and more. She was a breath of fresh air in his busy and stressful life and someone who helped him see the world through a different lens. It wasn't long after that their love story took a new turn. He proposed to her and she accepted. Their wedding was a beautiful and intimate affair. Timothy's life became a full circle of the village boy with nothing but dreams to the man who had found love and success in a foreign land. 1 year later, they had their first baby and Timothy knew it was time to bring his mother to London. It has always been his dream to give her the life she deserved and to thank her for everything she has sacrificed. The day Mama Timo landed, it was a crying day for all of them because she just kept on remembering how they started, how they would be mocked, and how it looked like people had the register of time and season, marking names of people that will be rich and take their names as people who will forever remain poor. Months later, Uncle Ebube reached out to apologize. His health had declined and his business was failing beyond repair. He genuinely wanted to make amends for the wrong he had done to his nephew. Timothy, who had been blessed beyond his expectations, sent money to help his medical bills. Uncle Ebube was humbled and overwhelmed. He couldn't stop thanking Timothy. "Thank you, my boy. I don't deserve this," he said, "but I'm grateful. You have shown me that real wealth is not in the money, but it is in the strength of character." "It's nothing, Uncle," Timothy replied. "If God had abandoned me the way you did, I wouldn't have been here. This is a lesson to me as well, that life is very unpredictable. What you did to me helped in shaping me into the person I needed to become. I didn't let your rejection define my worth. In fact, if you didn't reject me, maybe I wouldn't have been serious with my life. As it is often said, who no get helper, they get sense. So thank you, Uncle, for pushing me into my destiny, and I wish you the peace and healing that you seek." He dropped the call and his mother was so proud of him. Hey, African Tales by Karma Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. I hope you learned one or two things from this story. Before I leave today, I would like to say this to all those who find themselves in Timothy's shoes, facing difficult situations, feeling unsupported or neglected. Remember that life may not always go the way you expect, and help might not come from the places you thought it would. There will be times when people you trust will let you down and you feel as though you have been abandoned. But my dear friend, be courageous. Sometimes help doesn't come from where you expect because it's not always meant to. Sometimes life's greatest blessings come from where we least expect them. There are times when God in His wisdom works in such a way that when He is finished, no one else can take the glory. He orchestrates events, moves people, and shapes circumstances so that the credit for your success will belong to Him alone. Trust in His plan, even when it doesn't make sense. Keep moving forward and hold on to the belief that your time will come. The struggles you face today are not forever. Keep doing what you know is right. Keep working hard and never give up on yourself. You are not defined by the obstacles you face, but by your resilience and the strength you find in overcoming them. Don't let anyone's dismissal or rejection stop you from reaching for your dreams. God has a way of turning everything around in the right time. And to those who have been like Timothy's uncle in this story, who have been wicked or unkind to their nieces, nephews, or other family members, especially when they are in need, it's never too late to change. You may have been in a position of power or privilege, thinking you had the right to dismiss the needs and aspirations of others. But remember, this life has a way of humbling all of us. Being wealthy or successful doesn't give you the right to treat others with disregard, especially those who look up to you for support. You may have turned a blind eye in the past, but take this moment to reflect. Is your pride worth the loss of relationships? Is your comfort worth the hurt you have caused? True wealth isn't measured by money, but by the way you treat others. If you have wronged someone, especially family, take the step to make things right today. Apologize, ask for forgiveness, and offer help where it is needed. The highest form of success is in knowing that you have made a positive impact in someone else's life. Remember, life is not all about what you have accumulated for yourself. It's about the legacy you leave and the relationships you nurture. Don't be the one who holds other people back. Be the one who lifts them up, especially when they need it most. You might think that being wealthy, powerful, or successful makes you untouchable, but those things don't last forever. Like I said before, this world has a way of humbling every one of us when we least expect it. And the truth is, you never know when the family member you have been unkind to will be the one who has the power to help you. Please give the story a thumbs up and let me get to read from you again in the comments what you think about the story. If you have any experience to share with us in line with the story that I've just shared, please feel free, and I promise to respond to every one of us just the way I've been doing. If you have not subscribed to this channel, how about now? What are you waiting for? Punch out that subscribe button so that you can join the Karma Tribe. And until I bring another exciting story your way, it is a goodbye from here, and God bless you.